I stood frozen on the cracked pavement in front of my brother Daniel Cooper's house while the fading afternoon light flickered across the flashing red and blue reflections cast by the patrol cars. The air smelled like cold metal and burnt rubber from the police cruiser still idling near the curb. Officer Mark Ellison's palm pressed firmly against my shoulder, steady but unmovable, as if he knew the exact second my instincts would take over and force me through the broken doorway. His voice came out low and strained, almost reluctant, as if speaking the words aloud would make everything worse than it already was. "Ma'am, you shouldn't look at your daughter." The sentence cut through the ringing in my ears with terrible clarity, each word falling like a weight onto my chest. For a long, suspended moment, I could not breathe. Someone nearby whispered something I could not decipher. The neighbors clustered behind the yellow tape hands over their mouths, eyes wide with pity and morbid curiosity. I barely registered any of them. All I heard was the thin, broken sound drifting from inside the house. The sound that did not belong in any home, especially not in the home where I believed my child had been safe. Lily's cry cracked through the doorway again, soft but unmistakable, the kind of cry a mother never forgets, no matter how many years pass. My knees weakened under me. "That is my daughter," I said, though my voice came out raw and unsteady. "I need to get to her." Officer Ellison tightened his grip not harshly, but with an authority that told me he had done this before, had stood in front of other parents, had spoken other impossible warnings. "You need to wait," he said, but even he could not quite meet my eyes. He looked away toward the ruined entrance, toward the splintered door frame, toward the overturned shoe rack and the shattered picture frames visible from where we stood. I followed his gaze, my pulse hammering painfully as my eyes traced the jagged edges of chaos inside. I saw the dining chair broken clean in half. I saw the lamp lying on its side. I saw a streak of something dark on the hardwood floor, faint but real. A sound rose in my throat, a helpless, involuntary thing that tasted like fear and disbelief and rage all at once. I pushed past the officer, my shoulder slipping under his hand before he could react. He called out, but his command blurred into the pounding rush of blood in my ears as I stumbled toward the open doorway. The living room smelled like dust and something sour like old sweat soaked into fabric. Each step forward felt heavier, as if the house itself resisted my presence. Daniel's jacket lay crumpled near the stairs, one sleeve ripped. A coffee mug had smashed against the wall, ceramic pieces scattered across the floor like sharp little warnings. I moved deeper inside the floor, creaking softly under my weight. Lily's cry came again, smaller this time, thinner, as if fading. My heart clenched so hard I thought it might split apart. I do not remember telling my legs to move faster, but suddenly I was nearly running. As I rounded the corner toward the hallway, the dim light flickered across the edge of a small handprint smudged on the wall. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment I could not move. Another officer shouted something behind me, but nothing mattered except reaching my daughter. I dropped to my knees the second I saw her under the narrow table near the wall, curled into herself, trembling. She did not look up when I whispered her name. She did not lift her head when I reached out my hand. She did not recognize my voice. The bruises on her small arms bloomed like terrible shadows beneath her skin. I felt the world tilt as another muffled cry echoed from deep inside the darkened hallway, pulling every part of me forward despite the weight of dread. 3 weeks before the police sirens painted the front of my brother's house in frantic flashes of red and blue, my life had felt controlled and predictable in the way only a single mother forced to survive on discipline and structure could understand. My name is Hannah Cooper, 38 years old, Assistant District Attorney for Multnomah County in Oregon, a job that demands poise during the day and endless emotional stamina at night. The morning I received the email from the Department of Justice inviting me to attend a specialized 3-week legal training program in Washington, D.C., I remember staring at the glowing screen with a strange mix of pride and dread. Professionally, it was everything I had worked for. Personally, it was a logistical disaster. I glanced across the small kitchen of our townhouse where Lily sat at the table, still in her pajamas, swinging her legs and drawing a picture of a cat that looked suspiciously like a round cloud with whiskers. She hummed softly, her blonde hair falling into her eyes as she concentrated. The sight of her innocence always made my chest tighten, a reminder that every decision I made had to pass through the lens of motherhood first. The question hit me immediately. Who was supposed to watch her for 21 days? Evan, my ex-husband, was already scheduled for a seasonal engineering project in Alaska, one of those remote assignments where cell service was a coin toss and returning early was nearly impossible. We had been divorced for 2 years, but he never failed Lily, and he was heartbroken when he realized he could not rearrange the contract dates. We sat at my dining table that evening, surrounded by the half-comfort and half-awkwardness that always grew between us since the divorce. Evan ran his hands through his hair the same way he always did when he was overwhelmed. "I am sorry, Hannah. I really am. I tried everything." I knew he had. I sighed, trying to ignore the pressure building in my chest. "It's not your fault." I looked at Lily, who was now sprawled on the floor, coloring a blue sun. She deserved consistency. She deserved safety. She deserved more than frantic last-minute childcare decisions. My options were slim. My friends were either unavailable or not equipped to care for a child full-time. Hiring a nanny for 3 weeks last minute would cost an entire month's salary. I kept telling myself I could decline the training program, but the thought made my stomach twist. I had been waiting 8 years for an opportunity like this, the kind of program that put your name on the short list for future federal appointments. Just when I was ready to give up and decline, my phone rang. Daniel. My older brother's name lit up on the screen. We were not estranged, not exactly, but we lived separate lives. He resurfaced when he needed something or when holidays forced him to. I hesitated before answering. "Hey," he said, a little out of breath as if he had rushed to make the call. "Got a minute." I stepped into the hallway away from Lily's ears. "What's going on?" He cleared his throat. "Evan called me, told me about your trip." I tensed, not expecting Evan to spread the news. "Yeah, I still have no idea what to do." Daniel's voice softened in a way that caught me off guard. "I can take Lily Hannah." I almost laughed from shock, not disbelief in his intentions, but surprise that he volunteered for anything resembling responsibility. My brother had always been charming in a restless, unreliable sort of way, the type who drifted between jobs and relationships like a man searching for a version of himself he had never met. He continued before I could respond. "Seriously, I am not joking. I have the time. I work nights at the auto shop this month, and Miranda is home during the day. She loves Lily." Miranda, his girlfriend of 2 years, a woman I barely knew beyond the polite dinners where she smiled like she was trying to make her expression match whatever the situation required. She was 36, pretty in a delicate way, with soft waves of dark hair and a gentle voice that never matched the sharp way her eyes darted whenever conversations drifted toward family. I liked her enough, but something about her always felt rehearsed. Daniel's voice cut through my thoughts. "It would help us out, too. It would give Miranda some company. She thinks Lily is adorable." I bit my lip, staring at the calendar pinned to the wall. I knew the responsible answer was to politely decline figure something else out. But I was tired. Tired of juggling everything alone. Tired of being the only parent who could bend. And Daniel sounded sincere for once. "Are you sure?" I asked quietly. 3 weeks is a long time." He laughed lightly. "I changed your diapers for longer than that." I rolled my eyes even though he could not see me. "Fine. If you and Miranda are really offering." His voice brightened immediately. "Absolutely. We would love to." Lily perked up when I told her. She had always liked Daniel, always drawn to his easygoing personality, his silly jokes, the way he called her Squish because she used to squish his cheeks when she hugged him. "Mommy, can I take Mr. Whiskers?" She held up her stuffed cat. I smiled. "Of course, if you want to." Over the next 2 days, the plan formed with careless ease that now in hindsight felt like a warning I had ignored. Daniel and Miranda drove over with their silver pickup, helped me pack Lily's small suitcase, and loaded her car seat into the back. Miranda knelt down to Lily's level and brushed a strand of hair behind her ear while smiling gently. "We are going to have so much fun, sweet girl." She said it kindly, but the way she squeezed Lily's shoulder lingered a little too long. I filed the unease away as paranoia. After all, I was handing my daughter off for 3 weeks. maybe no scenario would have felt comfortable. As they drove away, Lily waved from the back seat, her face pressed to the window. I forced myself to smile, forced myself to breathe, forced myself to believe everything would be okay. It would take less than 5 days for that belief to crumble. It would take less than 3 weeks for my life to collide with flashing lights police tape and the sentence that would haunt me forever. Ma'am, you shouldn't look at your daughter. The first few days passed with the kind of cautious optimism that makes you second-guess your own instincts. It was the type of calm that feels like a thin sheet of ice, smooth on the surface but hiding something unstable underneath. I tried to ignore that sensation. I buried myself in the opening lectures of the Justice Department training program, told myself that Lily was safe, told myself that Daniel and Miranda were capable. For the first 24 hours, everything looked normal. Daniel sent a photo of Lily eating pancakes at their kitchen table, her hair messy, her smile small but real. Miranda texted a short message saying Lily was adjusting fine and had colored pictures all morning. I wanted to feel relieved, but something about the tone of the message felt overly formal, almost stiff. Still, I pushed the thought away. The second day I called during lunch break. I sat on a bench outside the training center, my phone pressed tight against my ear as the wind blew across the courtyard. The call connected, but Miranda answered instead of Daniel. Her voice sounded soft, almost too soft, like someone trying to hide that they had just stopped crying. "Hi, Hannah," she whispered quickly. "Lily's asleep. She had a big morning." I hesitated because Lily almost never napped during the day unless she was sick or exhausted. "Oh, is she feeling all right?" Miranda cleared her throat. "Oh, yes, just tired." She rambled something about taking Lily to the park, about playing with chalk on the driveway, but her voice wavered in the middle of her explanation. "I asked her to wake Lily for just a second." Miranda's answer came too fast. "I really do not want to disturb her. She needs rest." It was not the words that bothered me, but the tone. People who are telling the truth often sound uncertain or casual. People who are lying sound too controlled, too polished around the edges. Still, I let it go. I did not want to be the hovering mother who questioned every detail. On day 3, I finally managed to video call. I was exhausted from 10 hours of legislation seminars and sat on the edge of the hotel bed waiting for the screen to load. When it did, Miranda appeared again, her dark hair pulled back, her smile thin. "Lily is just getting ready for bed." "Let me see her," I said with a smile that felt too hopeful. Miranda nodded, but the camera did not move. Instead, she stepped slightly to the side, blocking my view of the hallway behind her. I could not help noticing the faint shadows on the wall, like something had been dragged or bumped against it. She noticed me looking and quickly shifted positions. After a moment, she called out for Lily, but there was no answer. "Sorry, she must already be asleep," Miranda said quickly. It was only 7:30. That was not Lily's bedtime. That night, I lay awake in the hotel room, staring at the ceiling, trying to silence the unease clawing at the back of my mind. It felt irrational. It felt unfair to Daniel and Miranda. It felt like something I should not voice out loud, but the feeling was there. By day 4, the strange silences became more frequent. Daniel sounded tired when he picked up the phone. Not annoyed, not busy. Just tired in a way that surprised me because Daniel seldom showed strain. He gave short answers, mumbled that everything was fine, and then quickly passed the phone to Miranda. When I asked where Lily was, Daniel said she was playing in her room and did not want to be disturbed. Lily always wanted to talk. My daughter could talk to a stranger in a grocery store for 10 minutes without pausing to breathe. Hearing she did not want to talk to her own mother felt unnatural. The 5th day was when I first noticed the shift in Miranda's eyes. The call connected and she held the phone too close to her face, her smile too tight. I could see something strange behind her, a shadow of movement in the hall. I tried to tilt my own phone angling to see what was happening. Miranda blocked the view casually but too quickly. Her hand trembled when she tucked her hair behind her ear. "Everything okay?" I asked slowly. "Of course," she replied with an unconvincing brightness. "Just busy." "Lily is brushing her teeth." I waited. She did not call Lily over. She did not turn the phone. I heard something faint in the background, a soft sound like a muffled whimper, or maybe just the creak of a door. But when I leaned closer, Miranda raised her voice slightly as if to cover the noise. The conversation lasted less than a minute. When she hung up, I stared at my phone screen for a long time, fighting the instinct rising inside me. Something was off. Not dramatic, not violent, just off. And in my experience as an assistant district attorney, the most dangerous situations were almost always the ones that began with small, seemingly insignificant warning signs. A too soft voice, a too bright smile, a child who suddenly became silent. By the end of that first week, those subtle red flags had begun knitting themselves together into a pattern I could no longer ignore. By the time the second week approached, the unease that had been whispering at the edges of my mind turned into something louder, something heavier, something that made it difficult to breathe whenever my phone buzzed with a notification. The shift was subtle at first, so subtle that I kept trying to convince myself I was imagining it, but every day added another layer to the dread settling deep in my chest. On the 8th day of my training in Washington, D.C., I called during my lunch break like I always did, sitting at the same outdoor table near the fountain, my half-eaten sandwich untouched beside me. The phone rang 3 times before it went to voicemail. That had never happened. I tried again. Voicemail. A slow burn of panic crawled up my spine. Daniel never ignored calls from me for more than a few minutes. I texted him asking if Lily was okay. The message delivered but remained unread. I checked another 10 minutes later. Still unread. The air around me felt too warm. People walked past laughing, talking, living normal lives, while my mind circled the possibility that something was deeply wrong. 2 hours later, I finally received a text from Miranda. Everything fine. Lily playing outside. We call later. The message lacked punctuation and warmth, both of which made it feel mechanical, like someone typing fast to get rid of a responsibility they did not want to deal with. I waited for the promised call. It never came. That night, after a long day of cross-jurisdiction procedural training, I tried calling again. Neither Daniel nor Miranda answered. I stared at the hotel room wall, the cheap art print above the bed, a blur, as my thoughts spun out of control. I told myself Lily might have fallen asleep early. I told myself Daniel might be working late. I told myself anything that would silence the rising panic, but panic does not listen to reason. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Miranda. Lily's sick last night, sleeping now. We'll call later. The message sounded off. I could not explain why, but a mother does not need concrete evidence to feel when something is wrong. The problem was that I did have evidence, just not the kind I wanted. The following afternoon, I finished training early and rushed outside to call again. This time, Miranda answered on the first ring. Her face appeared on the screen, pale and shiny as if she had been crying or sweating. The camera angle was too close to her face, cutting off any view of the room behind her. She smiled a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Everything okay, Hannah?" My pulse stuttered. "Let me see Lily." Miranda blinked rapidly. "Oh, she is napping again. She is really tired." Something in my chest tightened. For 3 days, she has been tired. Has she seen a doctor? Miranda laughed lightly, but the sound cracked in the middle. "Oh, no need. She is just adjusting. Can I see her?" Miranda froze for half a second. It was the kind of pause that told the truth more clearly than words. Then she angled her phone slightly, but only enough to show a wall, nothing else. "See? She is in her room." I did not see anything. My voice came out sharper than I intended. Miranda moved the camera again as if trying to prove something, but the motion was jittery and unnatural. I thought I heard a quick inhale, not hers and not mine, like a small, frightened breath being swallowed in the dark. Miranda ended the call quickly. "Sorry, Hannah. Need to go. Talk later." The screen went black before I could protest. That night, I did not sleep. By day 10, the lies became too frequent to ignore. My morning call was answered by Daniel with a voice so strained it sounded like he was speaking through clenched teeth. "Everything fine," he said. "Lily good." His sentences were short-clipped, nothing like his usual rambling style. I could hear background noise but could not place it. A thump, a quiet sob. Something dragging across the floor. I asked to speak to Lily. Daniel said she was at a neighbor's house. I asked which neighbor. He hesitated too long. "Just a friend." I felt my entire body go cold. In my work as an assistant district attorney, hesitation always meant one of two things. Someone was lying or someone was scared, or both. The 12th day was when everything began to unravel. I was sitting in the lobby of the training building waiting for the afternoon session to start when I decided to call again. The phone rang. Miranda answered. This time the call lasted only a few seconds but revealed more than any long conversation could have. The screen showed her face tense and unusually flushed. Behind her, I glimpsed something that made my breath catch. A shadow. A small one, low to the ground. Then I heard it. A whimper. It was faint, but it was unmistakably a child's whimper. My daughter's. My entire body went rigid. Miranda attempted to smile, but the expression looked forced, like her face was made of cracking porcelain. Bad connection. Call later. Then the screen went dark. My pulse thundered in my ears. It felt like the walls of the building were closing in. I grabbed my purse and stepped outside into the sharp DC air. My hands shaking as I dialed Daniel. Voicemail. I dialed again. Voicemail. I sent a message. Please call me. I need to talk to Lily. It remained unread. I could no longer sit still. I needed information. Something. Anything. So I did the one thing I swore I would not do unless absolutely necessary. I called their next-door neighbor in Oregon, Mrs. Porter, an older woman who adored Lily and always kept an eye on the neighborhood children. She answered on the second ring. Hi, Hannah. Everything all right, sweetie? Her voice alone made me want to cry. I swallowed hard. Have you seen Lily this week? There was a pause. Actually, no, I have not. Not since last weekend. She usually plays in the yard every afternoon, but I have not seen her at all. Not once. Not even out front. My stomach dropped so suddenly I had to grip the edge of a table to keep myself balanced. Thank you, I whispered. Please, if you see anything, let me know. I hung up and stared into the distance with a hollow kind of fear. All the small, strange moments from the past days fused together in my mind, creating a mosaic of dread that no reasonable explanation could cover. Lily disappearing from view, Miranda blocking the camera, strange noises in the background, messy excuses, unread messages, and Lily no longer wanting to talk to me. That final detail hurt the most because I knew it was a lie. My daughter would never choose silence. Something was happening in that house, something someone did not want me to see. And by the end of that 12th day, I knew with a certainty that chilled my bones that I had to go home early. I did not care about the training program. I did not care about the professional milestone. I cared about only one thing now, my daughter. The decision to come home early did not feel like a decision at all. It felt like instinct, pure and unfiltered, the same instinct that makes a mother sprint toward a crying child before her mind fully understands what is happening. By the morning of the 13th day, I could no longer function in the training sessions. The instructors' voices turned into meaningless vibrations, the legal terminology on the projector blurred, and every minute that passed felt like a minute stolen from my daughter's safety. I packed my suitcase in under 5 minutes, zipping it shut with trembling hands. I emailed the program coordinator with a brief explanation about a family emergency, then shut my laptop so hard the sound startled me. I booked the earliest flight out of DC, the one leaving in just under 90 minutes. It gave me barely enough time to rush down the hotel elevator, grab my bags, and force my legs into a half-frantic run toward the rideshare pickup zone. My heart thudded in my chest like a clenched fist refusing to release. Every red flag from the past week replayed in my mind as the car sped toward the airport. Each memory struck with sharper detail than the last. Lily not showing up in calls. Miranda's evasive tone, the strange shadows behind her. That whimper, that brief, fragile sound that had sliced through me like a blade. I tried calling Daniel again during the drive. Straight to voicemail. I tried Miranda. Voicemail. I texted. No reply. When the plane finally took off, I pressed my forehead against the cold window and stared down at the shrinking grid of the city, feeling guilt and fear twist together in my chest. How had I let it go on this long? How had I trusted the wrong people? The logical part of me whispered that I had not done anything wrong, that I had made decisions with the information I had, but logic was useless now. All I wanted was my daughter in my arms. The flight felt endless, even though it lasted barely 5 hours. The man in the seat beside me asked gently if I was all right. I muttered something about an urgent family matter, and he nodded with the sympathetic understanding of a stranger who knew not to pry. When the plane landed, I did not wait for the seatbelt sign to turn off before grabbing my bag and standing in the aisle. I rushed through the terminal, weaving past families and business travelers, my carry-on thumping against my leg with every hurried step. Outside, the Oregon air hit me with the cold bite of early evening. I ordered a taxi before I even reached the curb. As soon as I got in, I told the driver the address. He glanced at me in the rearview mirror, probably noticing my shaking hands and pale face. "Rough day, ma'am." I swallowed hard. Something like that. The driver nodded and focused on the road. Traffic crawled painfully slow, each stoplight stretching longer than the last. My stomach churned with a mix of fear and anger until I could no longer sit still. I pulled out my phone and called the neighbor again, hoping for some sign that Lily had appeared outside. Mrs. Porter answered with her familiar, warm voice. "Any news?" I whispered, my throat tightening. "I have been watching Honey, but no, I have not seen her. I am sorry." "Thank you. Please keep watching." I ended the call, my grip tightening around the phone. I could feel the truth forming even before I admitted it to myself. Something terrible had taken root in that house. Something no one wanted me to see. I checked Daniel's messages again. Nothing. Not even the faint gray read text that usually appeared beneath each bubble. My mind worked through the worst possibilities as the taxi finally turned onto Daniel's street. Houses passed by in a blur until his came into view. The moment I saw it, my breath caught. No toys in the yard. No lights inside. No movement at all. The driveway was empty except for Daniel's truck parked crookedly as if someone had pulled in too fast. Something in my chest snapped. I shoved money into the driver's hand and climbed out before he could give me change. My feet hit the pavement hard as I rushed toward the porch, my knuckles rapped against the door. No answer. I banged harder. Still, nothing. I tried the handle. Locked. I fumbled for the spare key Daniel had given me months ago. It slid into the lock but would not turn. They had changed it. They had changed the lock. My pulse roared in my ears. I moved to the window and cupped my hands around my eyes to see inside. What I saw made my blood go cold. Furniture overturned. A blanket crumpled on the floor. Lily's small pink jacket balled up in a corner. A dent in the wall. A crack in a picture frame. Something dark on the hardwood floor that I prayed was not blood. My body reacted faster than my thoughts. I stepped back and grabbed my phone with trembling fingers. My voice came out as a hoarse whisper when the 911 operator answered. "I cannot get into my brother's house. My daughter is inside. Something is wrong. Please hurry." The 911 operator kept her voice steady as she asked for the address and my name, my relationship to the occupants of the home, and whether I believed a child was in immediate danger. My responses came out clipped and shaky, my breath uneven as I kept pacing across the porch boards. "Yes, my daughter is inside. Yes, the lock has been changed. Yes, the house looks ransacked. Yes, I hear nothing. Yes, please send someone. Now." By the time I ended the call, my hands were trembling so hard I almost dropped the phone. I pressed my ear to the front door, hoping for any sign of movement, any soft sound that would tell me Lily was alive and conscious. Nothing. Not a footstep. Not a voice. Not even the faint hum of a television. The silence inside was so absolute it made my bones ache. I stepped back and scanned the front windows again, my breath fogging the glass as I tried to see beyond the dim interior. The living room looked wrong, not just messy, but violent, as if someone had gone through it in blind panic or rage. A floor lamp lay snapped at the base. A stack of Daniel's mail had been scattered across the rug. One of Lily's stuffed animals, the small brown fox she slept with every night, lay near the edge of the sofa with one ear torn. The sight nearly buckled my knees. I moved to the second window and pressed my palm against it for balance. Through the thin slat of the blinds, I saw something else. A dark smudge on the far wall. It was small, barely visible in the fading light, but enough to freeze my breath in my throat. For a moment, I told myself it could have been spilled juice or paint or anything less sinister. But deep down, I already knew. I whispered Lily's name, even though no one could hear me through the glass. The street behind me remained still and quiet, the kind of quiet that usually felt peaceful but now felt suffocating. I kept pacing the porch, glancing down the street every few seconds, waiting for the police to appear. Each minute stretched unbearably long. I called Daniel again out of pure desperation. Voicemail. I called Miranda. Voicemail. I texted both of them. The messages delivered but did not turn red. My pulse pounded at the base of my throat like a warning signal I could not turn off. I stepped off the porch and circled the house, hoping for another way and something I had missed. The side gate was partially open, the latch bent as if someone had yanked it too hard. I pushed it and stepped into the narrow walkway between the house and the wooden fence. Leaves crunched under my shoes. The backyard looked deserted, the grass flattened in odd patterns, the garden hose uncoiled like someone had tripped over it. I tried the sliding back door. Locked. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass and found myself whispering again. Lily, if you can hear me, hold on, baby. I will get to you. As I circled back to the front headlights finally flickered at the end of the street. Relief washed through me so fast it made my knees give slightly. 2 patrol cars pulled up in front of Daniel's house, their engines rumbling low. The officers stepped out swiftly, their movements confident and controlled, contrasting sharply with my frantic pacing. Officer Mark Ellison, a tall man with steady eyes and a calm presence, walked toward me first. "Ma'am, are you the caller?" I nodded. My voice cracked when I spoke. "My daughter is inside. 6 years old. She might be hurt. The lock is changed. I cannot get in." He exchanged a quick glance with the second officer, who immediately moved to check the perimeter. Officer Mark studied the door, then the windows, then my face. His expression softened slightly. "Did you see or hear anything unusual?" I swallowed hard. "The whole house looks like someone tore it apart. I do not know where my brother is. I do not know where Miranda is. I have been gone 2 weeks. I have not seen my daughter on a call for days. Something is wrong." He nodded once decisively and spoke into his radio. "Possible forced entry situation. Child in residence. Requesting permission to breach." The response came within seconds, a crackle of static followed by a firm authorization. Officer Mark positioned himself at the door while the second officer took stance behind him. "Ma'am, I need you to step back onto the walkway." I forced myself to obey, though every part of me wanted to cling to the door and scream until someone opened it. The officers counted quietly before slamming their shoulders into the wood. The first hit splintered the frame. The second strike cracked the deadbolt. The third sent the door flying inward with a hollow crash. I stumbled forward automatically, but Officer Mark lifted a hand sharply. "Stay there. Do not enter until we clear it." His voice left no room for argument. I stopped at the threshold, shaking, straining to see inside as the officers stepped in with flashlights raised. They moved through the living room methodically, calling out "Police Department, identify yourselves." The beam of one flashlight crossed the dark smear on the far wall. It was larger than it looked from outside. My stomach twisted. The officers moved deeper into the house, their footsteps sharp against the hardwood floor. Then I heard it. A soft cry. A whimper. Lily. My heart clenched so violently it hurt. I took a step forward before I could stop myself. Officer Mark turned and held out a firm hand just as the cry echoed again. "Ma'am, stay back. We will get there." The weight of his voice crushed me into stillness. I gripped the doorframe and forced myself to breathe while my entire world waited on the other side of that dark hallway. The officers disappeared deeper into the dark hallway with their flashlights cutting through the shadows, and every second they were out of sight, stretched into something unbearable, something thick and suffocating that sat in my chest like a stone. I stood frozen at the doorway, gripping the splintered frame so hard that wood dug into my palms. The low murmur of police voices moved from room to room, calm and controlled the way people sound when they are trained to face danger with steady hands. But beneath their calm, I could hear something else, something subtle, the slight tightening in their tone as they called out the same repeated warning. Police department, identify yourselves. The living room looked even worse now that I stood inside the threshold. My breath caught on the stale smell of overturned furniture dirt, something sharp and metallic in the air that I prayed was not what I feared. A child's crayon lay snapped in half near the coffee table. The blanket on the sofa was torn down the middle. A picture frame on its side showed a photo of Daniel, Lily, and me from last Thanksgiving, the glass shattered across our smiling faces. The whimper came again, a thin, fragile sound echoing faintly from the back of the house. It pierced through me with the force of a blade. I tried to take another step forward instinctively, but Officer Mark appeared from the hallway, immediately raising his hand. "Ma'am, stay where you are. We are not finished clearing." His voice was steady, but there was something underneath it that made fear crawl all the way up my spine. Something he did not want me to see. Something he was trying to shield me from. I shook my head, choking on my own breath. "I need to get to my daughter." He stepped closer, putting himself squarely between me and the hall. "You need to give us space to work. I know you are scared, but running in right now will not help her." His words were logical, but logic meant nothing when my child was crying somewhere in that house. Before I could protest again, a sharp gasp crackled through the radio of the second officer. "Mark, get back here. Now." My pulse stuttered. Officer Mark did not look at me. He turned immediately and disappeared into the hall. I followed him without thinking until the second officer stepped out from a bedroom doorway and blocked my path. "Ma'am, you need to wait. You do not want to see this." His face was pale under the flashlight glare. Not frightened exactly, but shaken. That made my heart plummet, because officers trained for violence do not get shaken easily. I tried to look past him, but he shifted just enough to obstruct my view. Behind him, I could hear movement, low voices, and the faint sound of something being dragged slightly across the floor. Not violently, just moved gently. Then a small voice whimpered again, a tiny trembling sound. My knees buckled and I pressed my hand against the wall to steady myself. "Lily! That was Lily!" Officer Mark's voice echoed from inside the room, quieter now. "She is responsive. Bring the medic kit. She is responsive." Those words should have been a relief, but they felt like a punch to the stomach. Responsive meant conscious. It did not mean safe. It did not mean unharmed. It did not mean that whatever had hurt her was gone. I tried once more to step forward. "Please let me see her. Please." The second officer's jaw tightened. "Not yet, ma'am. We need to document the scene." I did not care about procedure. I did not care about evidence. I cared about the small body curled up somewhere in that house. But before I could argue, something shifted inside the room. A shadow. A shape. Then Daniel's voice, hoarse and broken, cracked through the silence. "Someone help her. Please." I froze. My brother's voice sounded nothing like the Daniel I knew. It was raw, desperate, frayed at the edges. The officers exchanged a quick glance, then stepped aside just enough for me to see into the room. Not fully, just a sliver of the scene. Enough to make the world tilt. I saw a bare patch of carpet near the corner covered in small crumpled tissues. I saw the edge of Lily's blanket twisted and dirt-stained. I saw my brother sitting on the floor against the wall clutching his ribs, his face bruised and swollen, his eyes red from crying. And then I saw Lily. Or rather, I saw the tiny curve of her back beneath the table. Her knees pulled to her chest, her arms wrapped around herself, her small body trembling with each faint inhale. She was not facing me. She was facing the wall, hiding as if whatever had hurt her was still near. My vision blurred, my breath strangled in my throat. I tried to whisper her name, but it came out as a broken exhale. The officers moved toward her with practiced care, one kneeling down to lower his voice as he approached. "Lily, it is okay now, sweetheart. We are here to help you." She flinched violently at the sound, covering her head with her hands. The movement was so instinctive, so terrified, that I felt something inside me crack open. Officer Mark glared sharply at the second officer, his voice tight. "Do not let her see anything yet." That was when he looked at me again. His expression changed completely. He walked toward me slowly as if approaching someone standing at the edge of a cliff. Hannah, please. Stay right here. His voice lowered. You should not look. But it was too late. I had already seen enough to know that whatever had happened in this house had broken my daughter in ways I was not prepared for. And nothing in the world could have kept me from reaching her now. The moment the officers crouched beside Lily, something inside me snapped loose, and every ounce of control I had been clinging to evaporated. I stepped forward again, not thinking, not breathing, just moving toward the tiny trembling form under the table. But Officer Mark extended his arm across my path, firm but not forceful, creating a barrier I could not get through. His voice stayed low, almost gentle, but the warning in it was unmistakable. Hannah, you cannot approach her yet. Let us get her stabilized first. Stabilized. The word echoed in my skull like a siren. Children should be comforted, soothed, held. Stabilized was the language of injury, of crisis, of scenes no child should ever be part of. It made the fear in my chest turn sharp and hot. Lily whimpered again, a soft, broken sound that made her whole body shiver. She was curled so tightly that she barely looked human, more like a small wounded animal trying to disappear into the shadows. One of the officers crouched slowly, lowering his flashlight so the beam would not hit her directly. He spoke with that tone police use when they approach traumatized victims, measured and steady. Lily, sweetheart, my name is Officer Mark. You are safe now. We are here to help you. She did not uncurl. She did not look up. She just pressed her face against her knees, her little shoulders shaking. I felt my throat close as if someone's hand gripped it from the inside. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run to her. I wanted to grab her and never let her go again, but the officer's arm blocked me every time I tried to move. I could feel my breath turning shallow, the edges of my vision tightening, but I forced myself to stay upright, forced myself not to break apart in the hallway where she might hear me. Officer Mark tried again. Lily, honey, can you look at me? We are going to help you find your mom. The word mom made Lily flinch so hard she hit her shoulder on the underside of the table. She gasped from the pain, and I almost dropped to my knees. Why would my daughter flinch at the word mom? Why would she recoil as if expecting pain instead of comfort? I pressed my hand to my mouth, swallowing a sob. The second officer moved to the opposite side of the table. He crouched lower, placing his hand gently near her but not touching her. Lily, can you show me your hands, sweetheart? I need to make sure you are not hurt. She hid her hands under her knees and shook her head hard, refusing to expose even an inch of herself. My heart shattered at the sight. My daughter, who used to run into my arms with her whole body, who used to twirl in circles on the kitchen floor, who laughed until she hiccuped whenever Daniel made silly faces, was now reduced to a shaking shell who recoiled from the world. I stared at her hair, dirty and tangled strands sticking to the back of her neck. One of her pigtails from the picture Daniel sent days earlier had come undone. Her dress, the small yellow one with white buttons that she had insisted on packing, was smeared with dirt and something darker. The fabric was ripped near the hem. Her legs had patches of bruises, some faint and yellowing, others fresh and blue, and her socks. One was missing. The other hung halfway off her foot, so dirty it barely resembled the white cotton it once was. My voice finally escaped in a whisper I could not contain. Lily. She froze. Her breath hitched and her small shoulders rose sharply as if bracing for impact. The reaction gutted me. She did not lift her head. She did not move toward my voice. She curled tighter, pressing into the corner, almost disappearing behind the chair leg. Officer Mark turned his head slightly toward me, his voice softening even more. Let us try something. I nodded even though my lungs felt crushed. Mark crouched again and spoke gently. Lily, sweetheart, I have someone here who wants to see you, someone who loves you very much. He paused. Your mom is here. Lily trembled, her body stiffening as if afraid this was a trap. She did not turn around. She did not breathe at first. Then she whispered something so faint I almost missed it. The word came out thin and broken. No. I covered my mouth with both hands as tears blurred my vision. My daughter was afraid to see me. The officers exchanged a glance that said more than any words could. Something had happened in this house that made her associate even my voice with danger. Something or someone had rewired her instincts completely. Officer Mark shook his head and signaled the second officer to step back slightly. He lowered himself even more, his voice barely above a whisper. "Lily, I promise she is safe. Your mom is safe. No one is going to hurt you." Slowly, he reached out and placed a hand on the floor where Lily could see it if she looked up. Not touching her, just offering a point of stability. Lily's breathing remained fast and erratic, but the small sounds she made grew quieter. She lifted her head an inch still, hiding most of her face behind her arms. Her eyes flicked upward for a split second, and in that split second, her gaze met mine. Her eyes widened slightly, not with recognition at first, but with confusion, as if she were trying to connect the voice she heard with the memory she had. I took one step forward despite my shaking knees. "Lily, it is me. It is Mommy." Her lower lip quivered. Her gaze flickered again, this time lingering. And then, like a slow, painful dawn breaking through storm clouds, recognition finally surfaced. "Mommy." The word came out fractured, trembling but real. A sob tore from my chest as Lily curled slowly, crawling toward me on unsteady hands and knees until she reached the edge of the table. She hesitated for a split second, then launched herself into my arms with a desperation that knocked me backward. I caught her against me, her small body shaking so violently I could feel every tremor through my bones. I held her tight, burying my face in her hair, whispering over and over, "It is okay, Lily. Mommy is here. I will never let anyone hurt you again." The ambulance ride felt unreal, as if I had been dropped into someone else's nightmare and forced to live inside it. I sat strapped to the bench seat while Lily clung to my chest with both hands, her fingers curled tight into the fabric of my coat, as if letting go would send her spiraling back into the darkness she had crawled out of. Her small face was buried against my collarbone, her breath rapid and shallow. Every time the ambulance hit a bump in the road, she flinched violently, tightening her grip until her knuckles turned white. A paramedic named Jenna sat across from us, her voice calm but tense as she checked Lily's pulse and oxygen levels with gentle movements meant not to startle her further. The bruises covering my daughter's arms looked even darker under the harsh ambulance lights. Some were yellow and fading. Others were fresh, angry purple marks shaped like fingers' handprints too large to belong to a child. The sight made my own breath come in sharp, uneven bursts. I tried to keep my voice steady as I whispered into Lily's hair. "You are safe now, baby. Mommy is right here. No one is taking you away from me." She did not answer. She just pressed her face tighter into my chest and whimpered whenever Jenna tried to move her arm. When the ambulance reached the hospital, a team of medical staff rushed out to meet us. The sliding doors parted with a hiss that made Lily jump. Jenna gave me an apologetic look. "Loud noises may trigger her. Just hold her close." I nodded, swallowing the rising panic. Two nurses guided us inside the brightly lit emergency department. The fluorescent lights felt blinding after the dark chaos of Daniel's house. The floors were polished and clean, the walls painted in calming colors, but none of it felt safe. Not yet. Lily trembled harder as they led us to a pediatric exam room. When I tried to set her down on the bed, she sobbed and wrapped her arms around my neck like she thought I would disappear if she loosened her grip. I held her tighter, feeling her heartbeat pounding against my collarbone. A doctor in her 50s entered the room, her short gray hair neat, her expression steady and compassionate. "I am Dr. Elena Foster," she said gently. "I will be examining your daughter." Her tone was warm but professional, the kind of voice that carried both authority and kindness. She lowered herself to Lily's eye level, not touching, just observing carefully. "I know this is frightening, sweetheart. No one here is going to hurt you." Lily tightened her grip on me. She did not make a sound. Dr. Foster stood and gestured for the nurse to dim the lights slightly. Soft light filled the room, casting gentler shadows across Lily's bruised skin. "We will take it slow," Dr. Foster assured me. "I want to document everything thoroughly." I nodded, my throat tightening. "Do whatever you need. Just please be careful." She touched my arm lightly. "We will." Over the next hour, the medical team conducted a careful step-by-step evaluation. Each step revealed more than I was prepared to hear. Weight check first. Lily had lost nearly 3 kilograms in less than 2 weeks. Next, they photographed her visible bruises. Dr. Foster spoke quietly while examining each injury, her tone clinical but tinged with sorrow. These bruises on her forearms are consistent with forceful grabbing. This one on her back indicates she was pushed or struck by an object. Her wrist shows signs of restraint. I felt sick, my stomach twisting in a way that made the room tilt. Lily was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. I whispered in her ear the entire time, holding her hand, letting her grip crush mine. "You can squeeze as hard as you want, baby. Mommy is right here." The examination continued. When Dr. Foster gently pressed on Lily's rib cage, my daughter winced and gasped. Dr. Foster's expression shifted subtly. "I am ordering a chest x-ray. There may be an older injury here." Older. That word echoed like a gunshot in my mind. They wheeled us down the hall for imaging. Lily whimpered through the entire process, refusing to let go of my coat. The technician allowed me to hold her hand while they positioned her carefully. After the x-rays were taken, we returned to the exam room. 30 minutes later, Dr. Foster returned with the scans. She pulled a stool close, her expression sober. "Hannah, I need to speak with you privately for a moment." I shook my head immediately, tightening my hold on Lily. "Anything you say to me, you can say while she is here." Dr. Foster hesitated but nodded. She sat down and unfolded the x-ray films across the light board. "Do you see this faint line here on the left lower rib?" I leaned in, my eyes blurring as I tried to focus. "Yes, that is a healed fracture. Judging by the stage of healing, it occurred approximately 10 to 12 days ago. The breath left my lungs all at once. 10 to 12 days. That was the exact period when Miranda kept telling me Lily was asleep or busy or at the park. I felt the cold numbness of guilt crawl up the back of my neck. Lily had broken a rib while I was 5 states away, and I had not known. I had not been there. Dr. Foster continued in a steady voice. "Abuse is the only reasonable explanation for this pattern of injuries. These are not accidental. These are not self-inflicted." She paused. "And, Hannah, some of these bruises were inflicted by someone with a much smaller hand." "Smaller." My voice came out strained. "Meaning," Dr. Foster inhaled slowly, "meaning at least 2 different people hurt your daughter. 1 adult male and 1 adult female." The room tilted. The floor felt unsteady under my feet. My vision tunneled for a moment, and I had to grip the side of the bed to keep myself upright. Lily whimpered softly, pressing her face into my chest again. I kissed her hair, trying to steady my breathing. Dr. Foster placed a comforting hand on my arm. "Hannah, your daughter is a fighter. You brought her in time. She will recover physically, but she will need therapy and a great deal of emotional support." Her voice softened. What she went through was prolonged and severe. I nodded, unable to trust my own voice. A knock sounded at the door. Detective Julia Sanders stepped inside, her expression grave but gentle. "Hannah, I need to take your statement as soon as possible, and we will need to speak with your brother and his partner as well." I swallowed hard, my heart pounding. Daniel had been injured too, but Miranda was nowhere to be found. The truth pressed in from all sides, impossible to escape. Someone had broken my daughter in that house, and now we had to uncover exactly who had done what. And why? Detective Julia pulled a chair beside the exam table while I held Lily in my lap, her small fingers still gripping my coat with desperate tension. The nurse had wrapped her in a warm blanket, but her trembling had not stopped. Julia opened a slim notebook, her expression shifting into the calm, neutral mask detectives wear when they know the answers will hurt, but they need to ask anyway. "Hannah, I need you to tell me everything from the moment you left for Washington, D.C., until you found Lily in the house." Her voice was gentle, but her eyes were sharp. She was already forming theories, already assembling timelines, already deciding who the likely suspect was. I inhaled shakily and did my best to recount the past 2 weeks. The missed calls, the unread texts, the strange video chats, Miranda's forced smile, Daniel's clipped tone, the whimpers, the shadows, the lies. As I spoke, Julia's pen moved swiftly across the page. She asked questions about Daniel's temper, his history, his emotional stability, whether he had ever been violent in the past. I shook my head each time, but I could see the shape of her suspicions forming anyway. Unemployment, stress, isolation, a crying child, a partner with a temper, a house in chaos, a man with bruises on his face. Julia exhaled slowly, tapping her pen against the notebook. Hannah, I want to be honest with you. Statistically speaking, the primary caregiver during the time of injury is almost always involved. My stomach twisted. My brother would never hurt Lily. He would break before he let anything happen to her. He would throw himself in front of a car for her. But the evidence, the injuries, the missing days, the lies, they painted a picture I did not want to see. Julia continued in a steady voice. Daniel was alone with her most of the time you were gone. Miranda worked part-time at the veterinary clinic. He had access. He had opportunity. He sounded stressed during your calls. He avoided showing you Lily. He changed the locks. She flipped her notebook shut. I need to question him as soon as the doctors clear him. I opened my mouth to protest, but the words tangled in my throat. I kept replaying the image of Daniel slumped on the floor of the house, bruised and shaking, whispering, "Help her, please." That was not the voice of an abuser. That was the voice of a man who had lost a battle. But detectives did not operate on instinct. They operated on patterns and probabilities. Julia stood. I am sending officers to locate Miranda as well. But based on what we know right now, Daniel is our primary suspect. The words hit me like a physical blow. No, she paused. No, Daniel would never. He loves her. He loves Lily more than anything. Julia's tone stayed even. Then he will have the chance to explain, but we have to follow the evidence. Before I could respond, another officer stepped into the room. Detective Sanders, we found Daniel. My breath hitched. Is he conscious? Barely. He is in trauma room 3. The officer's eyes flicked briefly toward Lily, then away, as if the sight of her made it difficult to keep his composure. He has multiple contusions, possibly broken ribs. He is saying he tried to stop something but could not, that he failed her. Failed her. Those words cut sharper than any accusation. Daniel was not a violent man. He was a man who carried guilt like a weight that crushed him. Julia nodded at the officer. Keep him under observation. Do not let anyone in without clearance. The officer left. Julia turned to me again. Try to rest for now. We will talk after the doctor finishes with Lily. She walked out, leaving me alone with the hurricane inside my chest. Lily stirred weakly in my arms, letting out a small whimper. I kissed her forehead, praying silently for answers that made sense. Minutes later, a nurse guided me and Lily to a pediatric recovery room. The lights were dimmer, the blankets warmer, and the quiet hum of machines filled the space. Lily finally loosened her grip just enough to lie back against the pillow while still keeping my hand locked in hers. I stroked her hair gently, my heart cracking at every bruise I saw. Then I heard movement in the hallway. Soft voices, urgency. The sliding door opened and 2 officers rolled Daniel into the room next to ours. I caught a glimpse of him through the gap in the curtain. His face was swollen, his left eye nearly shut. There were deep bruises across his jaw and rib cage. He looked broken. He looked defeated. He looked nothing like a man who had inflicted harm. He looked like a man who had been trying to shield a child with his own body. Daniel saw me through the curtain for a split second before the nurse adjusted it. His voice cracked through the thin fabric. Hannah. His tone was raw, a mixture of shame, agony, and something else. Desperation. I did not respond. I could not. My throat was a locked fist. The nurse pulled the curtain fully closed, and I was trapped between 2 agonizing truths. My daughter had been brutalized. My brother had been beaten half to death. And the detectives believed he was the monster. My chest tightened with a suffocating fear. What if they were wrong? What if he had tried to protect her? What if the real threat was still out there? 899. Detective Sanders returned to Lily's room less than an hour later, her expression still composed but sharpened by something new, something that hinted she had begun to question the assumptions she walked in with. She nodded toward the hallway. Hannah, can we step outside for a moment? I hesitated because Lily's fingers were curled around mine with the fragile strength of someone terrified the world might disappear again. I bent down, kissed her forehead, and whispered softly, "I will be right outside, baby. Mommy is not going far." She blinked her eyes heavy and glassy, but she did not cry. The nurse slid into the chair beside the bed, humming gently, and I forced myself to follow Julia into the hallway. She closed the door behind us and folded her arms tightly. I reviewed the preliminary medical report. Something is not adding up. Relief and fear tangled in my chest. What do you mean? Julia tapped the file in her hand. Some injuries line up with adult male force, some with adult female, but the timing is inconsistent with a single aggressor. My pulse quickened. The doctor said the same thing. She nodded. Yes, at least 2 people hurt your daughter, but here is the issue. Many of the most severe injuries appear to have happened while Miranda was documented to be working her shifts. My eyes widened. What are you saying? I am saying Daniel could not have inflicted those injuries alone. My breath caught. Then who did? Julia hesitated before answering, as if the words themselves were dangerous. We will get there. Right now, I need to review the crime scene again, but I want your perspective. You know that house better than my team. You used to be an ADA. I trust your instincts. The acknowledgement made my stomach twist. I had spent years prosecuting child abuse cases, but nothing in my career prepared me for being on the other side of the table. I inhaled shakily. Let me help you. Julia nodded and gestured down the hall. Come with me. They led me to a private conference room where body cam footage from the officers who breached the house had been uploaded. Julia dimmed the lights and clicked play. I braced myself. The footage was as horrifying as I remembered the scene being. The broken lamp, the shredded blanket, the dent in the wall. But now, with time to look, the details unfolded differently. Julia paused the footage and pointed to the dining chair lying on its side. Notice the break pattern. I leaned closer. The wood splintered inward, not outward. Consistent with someone being thrown into it. I swallowed hard. But the angle. Julia nodded sharply. Exactly. It suggests someone smaller than Daniel was pushed with force. Someone Lily-sized. My stomach lurched. She clicked forward until the flashlight beam passed Lily's blanket. There were faint scuff marks on the floor. She zoomed in. These marks are from the soles of adult shoes. A shuffle pattern. Not running, not chasing, forcing. My breath froze in my chest, forcing her into the corner. Yes. Julia continued the playback. When the light swept across the wall, the camera captured something I had missed in the chaos. A faint smear of makeup on the edge of the door frame. Foundation. Beige-toned. Not Lily's. Not Daniel's. My mind raced. Miranda. Julia gave a slow nod. It is possible. But then why would Daniel protect her? I whispered. Why would he lie? Julia's jaw tightened. People lie out of fear, or guilt, or loyalty, or to protect someone they are terrified of. Her tone darkened. Sometimes the victims protect their abusers. That hit me like a blow, because that line I had heard hundreds of times from victims I interviewed as an ADA, and I knew its weight, its truth. Julia paused the footage again and turned to me. Hannah, if you were in that house before anything happened, where would a frightened child hide? I did not even need to think. Under the table by the wall. She nodded. And if someone wanted to isolate her? Lock her in. Where is the most accessible door with a latch from the outside? The downstairs guest room. Julia grabbed her radio. Sanders to evidence team. I need an immediate search of the downstairs guest room doorframe for signs of forced closure or exterior latching. There was a burst of static. Copy that, detective. Julia ended the transmission and turned back toward me. I need to walk through the house again, but I want you there. I hesitated. What if I see something I cannot handle? She met my eyes with calm resolve. You already handled the worst of it. Now we find out who did it. My hands shook as we walked through the ER and out toward the police cruiser waiting to transport us. The streets blurred past the window as we drove through the dark. My thoughts were a storm of images. Lily under the table. Daniel's bruised face. Miranda's unread messages, the broken furniture, the silent house. When we arrived, the front door still hung crooked from where the officers had breached it. Yellow tape fluttered in the cold air. Julia guided me inside with a flashlight. The living room still smelled like dust and something else. Fear, memory, trauma soaked into the walls. I swallowed hard and forced my feet to move. She pointed to the floor. "This is where we found her blanket. Does anything look out of place to you?" I scanned the space, slowly letting my training resurface. The scuff marks were inconsistent. Some were chaotic like a struggle. Others were straight, controlled, deliberate steps. I crouched beside the rug, my fingers hovering over the marks. These lines, they are from someone dragging something. Or someone. Julia lifted the blanket with gloved hands. "What about this?" I touched the frayed fabric lightly. "This tear. It is not from a fall. It is from being yanked." Julia nodded grimly. That was my conclusion, too. We moved toward the hallway. The farther we walked, the colder the air felt. As we approached the guest room, I suddenly felt my pulse spike. Something was off with the door. Julia noticed it at the same moment. She crouched and shined the flashlight along the frame. Scratches. Dozens of them. Tiny ones low to the ground. I lowered myself beside her. "Those are nail marks. Small ones. A child trying to get out." My voice shook. "Lily!" Julia whispered sharply to the evidence techs behind us. "Photograph everything. Now!" I reached out and touched the frame. My daughter had clawed at this door, alone, trapped, terrified. The truth began to crystallize, sharp and undeniable. Daniel did not lock her in this room. He could not have. These scratches had been made from the inside, while someone forced the door closed from the outside. A wave of certainty surged through me so intense I nearly collapsed. Julia watched my expression shift. "Hannah, what do you see?" I exhaled slowly, the truth burning through my chest. A woman did this, and I think I know which one. The realization hit with such force that the room seemed to tilt around me. The scratches on the door frame, the drag marks on the rug, the smeared makeup on the wall, the inconsistent timing of injuries, the trembling in Daniel's voice, the hollow look in his eyes when he whispered that he had failed Lily. All the pieces shifted, clicked, aligned in one sickening moment. Julia watched my face closely. "Hannah, what did you just figure out?" My voice came out hoarse. "This was not Daniel. He tried to protect her. He was beaten too. Someone else locked Lily in here. Someone smaller. Someone angry. Someone jealous." Julia's jaw tightened. "Miranda." The name hung in the stale air of the hallway like a toxin. I stood abruptly, adrenaline fueling my limbs. "We need to search her things. All of them. Now." Julia did not argue. She gestured to the evidence techs and we moved quickly to the bedroom at the end of the hall. The air changed the moment we crossed the threshold. The room was far cleaner than the rest of the house. Too clean. The bed was made crisply, the dresser perfectly aligned. A scented candle sat unlit on the nightstand. There was an unsettling stillness to the space, a sense of control, of deliberate order. I scanned the room with a prosecutor's eye, searching for the dark truth hiding beneath the neatness. "Check the nightstand," Julia instructed the techs while she opened the closet. I moved to the dresser. The top drawer held neatly folded sweaters arranged by color. The second drawer held jeans rolled tightly military neat. The third drawer, pajamas, socks, no disorder, no sign of panic. I opened the fourth drawer. Something tugged at my attention. A small leather-bound book lay tucked in the back corner underneath a stack of scarves. My breath caught. A diary. I reached for it before the tech could lifting it into the light. It was heavy-worn, the edges cracked from years of opening and closing. My hands trembled as I flipped to the first page. The handwriting was tight, compressed, almost etched into the page. The date. 15 years ago. The line beneath it. "Hannah always gets everything." I froze. Julia stepped beside me. "What is it?" I kept reading each sentence, tightening a knot in my stomach. I watch how people look at her. She is the one they trust. She is the one they praise. She is the one everyone chooses. The page blurred for a moment as I forced myself to keep going. Another entry. 7 years ago. I lost my job today. Meanwhile, Hannah just got another promotion. Of course she did. Of course she did. 3 years ago. Daniel thinks she is perfect. He will never admit it, but he compares me to her. Everyone does. Even her daughter looks like her. Perfect mother, perfect child, perfect life. My fingers dug into the leather cover hard enough to hurt. Jealousy, long-standing, deep-rooted, poisonous. Julia leaned closer. This is motive. This is years of motive. I turned another page. 3 months ago, Hannah is leaving her daughter with us for 3 weeks. This is my chance. My hands shook uncontrollably. I had to sit on the edge of the bed before my knees buckled. Another entry. Lily cries too much. She clings to Daniel. She looks at me like she knows I am not good enough. She needs to learn she is not special. A chill sliced through me. The words grew darker as I flipped through the journal, each entry more disturbing than the last. The final pages were filled with frantic scrawl letters pressed so deeply into the paper they nearly tore through. She will learn. Hannah will break. They will both understand. I deserve their life. I deserve everything she gets. Julia exhaled sharply. She is a deeply disturbed woman. I swallowed hard, fighting a wave of nausea. And she was alone with my daughter for hours at a time. Julia turned to the evidence text. Bagot, full chain of custody. I stood numb and moved toward the closet. Something inside tugged at my instincts. I pushed aside the hanging dresses coats and folded blankets. A shoebox rested on the shelf, plain, unlabeled. My hand hovered over it for a second before I pulled it down. It was heavier than I expected. Julia noticed my frozen posture. Open it. I lifted the lid. Inside were dozens of crumpled papers. Drawings. Lily's drawings. Stick figures. Crayons. Childish shapes. But every one of them told a story. One drawing showed a small child behind a door, lines drawn across the frame as if representing scratches. Another showed Daniel lying on the floor, a large figure with long hair standing over him. Another showed a woman screaming. Another showed a child crying with dark marks on her arms. Julia's face hardened. These are disclosures. Visual disclosures. Children draw what they cannot say. I felt tears sting my eyes as I lifted the last picture from the box. Lily had drawn 2 figures, one with a sad face labeled Mommy, one with an angry face labeled M. And between them was Lily, crying, bruised, small. Julia took a slow breath. This is enough for an arrest warrant, but we need one more thing. Something that ties Miranda directly to the timeline of the injuries. A phone, a record, a message. I stood abruptly. Her purse. Where is her purse? Julia snapped her fingers at the tech team. Search the house. Every room, every cabinet. It took less than 10 minutes. They found it hidden behind the radiator in the laundry room. Why would she hide her purse? Julia muttered. Because she fled in a hurry, I whispered. Inside, the purse was her phone. The moment Julia unlocked it using a warrant override, the screen lit up with notifications she had never cleared. Messages to someone labeled simply D. My stomach twisted. Miranda had been talking to someone else. Julia opened the message thread. The most recent exchange made my blood run cold. 2 weeks ago. She is crying again. I cannot stand it. Let her cry. She needs to learn. Another message. Daniel is getting suspicious. Then let him try something. He will not win. And the final message. I will deal with the girl. When Julia finished reading the final message aloud, the room seemed to exhale all at once, as if even the walls understood the magnitude of what we had uncovered. The truth was no longer a foggy suspicion or a half-formed theory. It stood in the center of the bedroom like a living thing, undeniable and monstrous. Miranda had not snapped once. She had planned this. She had orchestrated it. She had escalated it piece by piece until Lily was nothing but a trembling shell curled beneath a table. And she had done it with intention, with precision, with resentment years in the making. Julia straightened, her jaw clenched as she issued rapid clipped orders to the officers around her. Get an APB out on Miranda Collins. Last known location, this residence. She may be armed. She may be unstable. She may be attempting to flee. Notify local hospitals and shelters. Check bus stations and airports. I watched her professionalism with a hollow kind of disbelief, struggling to keep myself upright. My legs felt like they were made of water, my chest tight and hot, my mind spinning with every image of Miranda's forced smile during video calls, her eyes darting slightly off camera, her voice too bright, her hands trembling just before she hung up. All the pieces made sense now. All the red flags that I had pushed aside in the name of politeness or optimism or exhaustion suddenly blazed like warning lights. Julia paused beside me. Hannah, we will find her. I nodded, but the motion felt disconnected, floating above my own body. I whispered almost to myself. She hurt my daughter. She hurt her for weeks. Julia's voice softened. And she will face consequences for every one of those days. We left the house together while the forensic team continued processing the scene, and the cold Oregon air hit my face like a slap. It barely registered. My mind was still in that bedroom staring at drawings that should have been innocent, but instead read like confessions of abuse. We drove back to the hospital in silence, the weight of everything settling deeper with each mile. When we returned, Daniel was still in the trauma bay next to Lily's room. I could hear his strained breathing through the thin walls, but I could not face him yet, not until I understood more, not until I knew exactly what his role had been in this nightmare. A nurse stepped out of Lily's room. She is sleeping again, still holding your scarf. She would not let me take it. I forced a small nod, pushing the ache in my chest down as I entered the dimly lit room. Lily's face looked softer in sleep, her small hands curled around the corner of my scarf the same way she used to hold my finger as a toddler. The bruises across her cheeks and arms seemed darker under the low light. I brushed a hair away from her forehead and whispered, I am here, baby. I am right here. I sat next to her for maybe 5 minutes before Detective Julia reappeared with a firm knock against the doorframe. Hannah, we found her. My heart stuttered. Miranda. Where? At the house. She came back for something. Or someone. My pulse raced. For what? Julia's expression hardened. For the diary. Or her phone. Or both. She paused. Or to try finishing what she started. The room tilted. My hand instinctively tightened on Lily's. Is she in custody? Julia nodded. Officers have her. She resisted. She tried to fight them. She even tried to run into the woods behind the property. Her voice sharpened. She screamed your name several times. I swallowed hard bile rising in my throat. What did she say? Julia hesitated clearly, choosing her words carefully. It was not coherent. A lot of rambling. A lot of blame. A lot of fixation on you. My voice barely came out. Take me to her. Julia studied me, weighing the risks. If she tries anything, she will not get close to me. She sighed, but nodded. All right, but she will be fully restrained and officers will be present the entire time. I followed Julia through the hospital corridor until we reached one of the psychiatric evaluation rooms near the end of the wing. 2 officers stood outside the door. Inside, through the small reinforced window, I could see Miranda sitting on the bed. Her hair was unkempt, her shirt torn a scrape on her cheek where she must have fallen during the arrest. But her eyes were feverish, wild, unfocused, yet locked on the door as if she sensed us before we entered. Julia stepped inside first. Miranda Collins, you are under arrest for aggravated child abuse, false imprisonment, assault, and obstruction. Miranda did not look at her. Her gaze snapped directly to me the moment I stepped inside. She lunged forward despite the handcuffs, despite the officer gripping her arm. Hannah, her voice cracked like broken glass. You. Of course you are here. Of course you are always here. I met her stare, refusing to look away. She laughed, suddenly loud and sharp, her head tipping back like something inside her had snapped clean in half. Did you like finding her? She hissed through her teeth. Did you like seeing what you made? My blood went cold. What I made. I forced my voice to stay even. You hurt a 6-year-old child. My child. Her smile twisted. She flinched as if the officer's grip tightened. Do not pretend you did not enjoy it. You always enjoy being the hero. The chosen one. The one everyone runs to. I felt something deep inside me shift, the realization settling with frightening clarity. This was never about Lily. Lily was a tool, a weapon, a way to reach me, a way to punish me for a life Miranda believed she deserved. Miranda continued through clenched teeth. Daniel loves you. He always has. Your parents loved you. Everyone loved you. And me. I was nothing. She spat the word like poison. Nothing. She leaned forward, eyes burning with hatred so sharp it felt scorching. If you have everything, then I deserve something too. You owe me. I stared at her evenly. I owe you nothing. Julia stepped closer. Why did you do it, Miranda? Why Lily? Miranda's lips stretched into a chilling smile. Because she is yours, and you love her. A pause. If I break her, I break you. My breath hitched. She whispered then, almost tenderly, and I enjoyed watching you break. Rage surged in my chest, but I forced myself to stand still to keep my voice from shaking. You will never come near my daughter again. You will never hurt anyone again. You are finished. Miranda's smile fell away. She lunged again, screaming. She needs to learn. You both need to learn. But the officers held her firmly and pinned her back to the bed. Julia turned to me quietly. You have heard enough. I nodded, stepping back toward the door. As I left, I heard Miranda's voice behind me rising in shrill, unhinged shrieks. You stole my life, Hannah! You stole everything! I deserve it! I deserve her! I deserve all of it! The officers closed the door. The sound cut off abruptly, leaving the hallway eerily quiet. Julia stood beside me, her voice steady. She is done. She is going away for a very long time. But I could not speak. I could barely breathe. Because one truth had just settled heavily in my chest. Miranda had not simply hurt Lily. She had weaponized her. She had taken every wound she carried from her own past and carved it into my daughter's skin. And now, I had to face the next truth, the one I had been avoiding. Daniel. The walk from the psychiatric wing back to the trauma bay felt longer than any distance I had ever crossed, even though it took barely a minute. The hallways were quiet now, lights dimmed for late evening rounds, nurses speaking in soft murmurs as they pushed carts from room to room. Every step made my pulse throb harder behind my ribs. I had faced abusers across courtroom floors, across interrogation tables, across years of case files and testimonies. I knew what guilt looked like and what denial sounded like. But I had never had to analyze the face of someone I loved. Someone who had been my closest anchor through divorce, through loneliness, through raising Lily alone. Someone who had promised me I could trust him. Someone who had been in that house when Lily suffered and had not saved her, or maybe tried to and failed. I did not know which truth terrified me more. When I reached Daniel's room, a nurse pulled back the curtain slightly. He is awake, but weak. Do not stress him. I nodded, even though I knew stress was inevitable. I stepped inside. Daniel sat propped up on pillows, his face half hidden under bruises. One eye was swollen shut, his lips split, his ribs wrapped tightly in bandages. He looked like a man who had been thrown against walls, kicked, beaten until the strength left his body. But when he saw me, his entire expression collapsed. Hannah. His voice cracked. He reached for me instinctively, then winced as pain shot through him. I stood at the foot of the bed, my hands clenched so tightly they shook. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. He stared at me with eyes filled with grief and something worse. Shame. Finally, I found my voice, though it scraped out of my throat like a rough stone. Daniel, what happened in that house? He lowered his gaze, his shoulders curling inward like he was trying to become smaller. To disappear. I stepped closer. Look at me. He lifted his head, tears pooled in the corner of his uninjured eye. Hannah, I am so sorry. I swallowed, forcing myself to keep my tone steady. Sorry for what? He inhaled shakily, his breath hitching. For not protecting her. For not protecting Lily. My chest tightened. Tell me everything. All of it. Daniel shut his eyes for a moment, gathering courage or collapsing under it. When he opened them again, something inside him had broken open. He spoke slowly, haltingly. It started small. Miranda would snap at Lily, tell her to stop clinging, tell her to be quiet, tell her she was too sensitive. At first I thought it was stress. Work had been rough. She lost clients. She blamed herself. I tried to keep the peace. He swallowed hard. But then she started yelling. Loud, sharp, cruel. She would grab Lily's arm when she didn't move fast enough. She would shove her away when she tried to hug me. My breath caught. And you let her. His face twisted. No. God, no. I told her to stop. I yelled at her. We fought. But she always waited until I was in the shower or outside or distracted. She knew exactly when to do it. My stomach turned. How long? A beat of silence. Weeks. Rage flared in my chest so hot I wanted to scream. Weeks. My daughter had been suffering for weeks while he made excuses. He rubbed his forehead. I tried to keep Lily with me as much as I could. I would sit with her in her room, sleep next to her. But Miranda? He trembled. She got worse. When Lily cried, Miranda said she was manipulating me. When Lily hid under the table, she said she was being dramatic. I clenched the foot of the bed so hard my nails dug into metal. You could have called me. You could have told me something was wrong. His voice cracked. I didn't want you to think I had ruined everything, that I had failed. You trusted me, and I thought I could fix it. I thought if I kept Miranda calm, Lily would be okay. I forced the question out, each word a blade. And the bruises, the injuries. His face crumpled. She hit Lily when I wasn't home, when I was asleep, when I was working in the garage. She shut her in the guest room because she said Lily needed to learn boundaries. I heard crying, but she would not let me in. She said Lily was pouting. I tried to force the door once, but Miranda... He touched his ribs. She attacked me. I blinked. Hard. Attacked you. She threw a lamp, hit me with a step stool. She scratched me. She threatened to call the police and claim I hit her. She said no one would believe me. I felt dizzy. She was unraveling, he whispered. She kept saying things about you, about your job, your success, how you always got what you wanted, how Lily loved you more than anyone, how I loved you more than her. I went still. What did you say? Daniel's eyes filled again. I told her she was wrong, that she was imagining things, that she needed help, that you were my sister and nothing more. I did not know it would make her angrier. I did not know she would take it out on Lily. He bowed his head, breaking. I failed her, Hannah. I failed your little girl. I should have gotten her out sooner. I should have called someone. I should have told you. I stared at him for what felt like forever, torn between grief and fury. He had not hurt Lily, but he had let someone else do it. He had stood in a burning house and hoped the flames would go out on their own. You were a victim too, I said quietly. But Lily was a child. She depended on you. She trusted you. And she paid the price. He sobbed, then shoulders shaking, tears dripping down his bruised face. I know. I will never forgive myself. I stepped closer. I did not take his hand. I could not. But my voice softened only slightly. You will tell the detectives everything. Every bruise, every scream, every threat she made. He nodded frantically. Yes, I will. Hannah, please. Please believe that I tried. I looked at him. My brother broken, battered, drowning in guilt, and I finally spoke the truth, sitting heavy in my chest. I believe you tried. But you did not try soon enough. His face crumpled. And that is something you will live with for the rest of your life. Miranda's arraignment happened less than 48 hours after her arrest, but those 2 days felt like weeks. The investigation moved fast, propelled by the brutality of Lily's injuries and the sheer volume of evidence uncovered from the house, her diary, her phone, The drawings, the scratches on the doorframe, the messages outlining her intent. Every document, every photograph, every timestamp told the same story. This was not an accident, not a moment of lost control, but a sustained pattern of deliberate harm. A campaign. A punishment she believed she was entitled to inflict. The courtroom on the first hearing day buzzed with low murmurs, reporters already circling in the hallway because cases involving young children always drew public outrage. But when the details leaked, when the media learned a 6-year-old had been imprisoned in a room, denied basic care, and beaten by a woman who was supposed to protect her, the coverage turned rabid. I sat on the wooden bench at the front, Lily asleep against my chest in her small blanket, her body still weak from days in the hospital. She didn't let me put her down, not even to walk. The prosecutor assigned to the case, a colleague I had worked with many times, kept glancing at Lily with a mixture of heartbreak and fury. He leaned toward me before the judge entered. "With the evidence we have, this is going to trial, and I intend to ask for the maximum sentence." My throat tightened. "Good." The bailiff called for everyone to rise, and the judge stepped in. The courtroom went silent. Then the officers led Miranda through the side door. She looked different than she had in the psychiatric room, colder, quieter. Her rage condensed into something tight and poisonous. Her wrists were cuffed. Her hair was pulled back. Her eyes scanned the room until they found me. She smiled. Not a real smile, a knowing one. A smile that said she still believed she had the power to get inside my head. Daniel was wheeled in next, escorted by 2 deputies. He looked smaller in the hospital gown, his ribs wrapped his bruises still dark and swollen. His eyes didn't rise from the floor, not once. When he sat near the defense table, he refused to look in my direction, either out of shame or fear of what he would see on my face. The judge began reading the charges. Aggravated child abuse, felony assault, false imprisonment of a minor, criminal negligence, obstruction of justice, endangerment, intentional infliction of emotional and physical harm. Each charge felt like a hammer striking metal, forging the truth into something unbreakable. Miranda stood straight, unflinching, almost bored. When the judge asked how she wished to plead, Miranda spoke clearly. "Not guilty." I felt a bitter laugh rise in my chest, but swallowed it. The judge continued detailing the evidence against her. "You are accused of harming a 6-year-old child for an extended period. You are accused of physical assault against Daniel Cooper. You are accused of restraining a minor in a locked room. You are accused of collaborating with another adult to conceal injuries." Miranda turned her head slowly, deliberately. Her eyes slid to Daniel. He flinched as if struck. Every officer in the room seemed to tense at once. Even the judge's eyebrow rose. "Miss Collins, the judge said your demeanor does not help your case." Miranda smirked. "People hate what they don't understand." "Your Honor, nobody understands what it is like to be second every day of your life." My skin crawled. Her attorney pulled her by the sleeve, whispering harshly, but she yanked her arm away. She lifted her chin toward me, her voice cutting through the courtroom. She had it coming. "My daughter doesn't matter to you, does she?" I said quietly from my bench, too quietly for anyone else to hear. Her eyes flashed. "She mattered only because she mattered to you." The judge struck his gavel sharply. "Enough. One more outburst and you will be removed." The prosecution moved quickly and the trial date was scheduled for 6 weeks later. 6 weeks in which Miranda was held without bail because the judge saw her for what she was, a danger, unpredictable, unstable. During that time, Lily made slow progress. She woke up at night screaming. She clung to me so tightly some days that I couldn't even use the bathroom without holding her hand. But she was trying. Every day she tried. The morning of the trial, the courthouse hallway was lined with reporters, journalists, victims' advocates, and curious onlookers. Lily stayed home with her therapist and Evan, who had flown back early from Alaska the moment the news broke. I sat beside the prosecutor as witnesses were called. Doctors, detectives, forensic analysts, neighbors. The evidence unfolded like a map of horror. Dr. Foster described Lily's injuries in detail. Detective Sanders recounted the crime scene, the claw marks on the guest room door. The forensic techs presented the diary and messages. Then Daniel took the stand. His hands shook as he swore to tell the truth. He looked hollow, beaten in spirit and body. The prosecutor asked him to recount everything. Daniel's voice broke repeatedly. Miranda's attorney tried to twist his words, suggesting he was just trying to reduce his own liability. He had to admit his failures, his negligence, his fear. But he also described the threats Miranda made against him, how she attacked him when he tried to intervene, how she locked Lily away when he didn't comply, how he begged her to stop. At one point, he broke completely and sobbed openly. The courtroom fell silent except for his ragged breaths. The prosecutor let him take his time, but the truth was clear. Daniel was a victim who had failed to protect, but he was not the mastermind of the violence. Miranda was. When it was Miranda's turn to testify, everything cracked open. She marched to the stand as if the courtroom belonged to her, her chin raised with defiance. She ignored her attorney's warnings to remain silent. She ignored the judge's reminders about protocol. And then she spoke. She talked about her childhood, her failures, every slight she had ever perceived, every moment she believed she had been overlooked in favor of me. She talked about losing her job, about financial strain, about resentment, about how Lily got more love than she ever did. Her voice grew sharper, more feverish. "Do you know what it feels like to be invisible?" she hissed. "To watch someone else get everything, to know you will never measure up. I deserved something. I deserved a chance. I deserved their life. I deserved her." The judge leaned forward, his expression hard. "Miss Collins, are you admitting you caused harm to the child?" Miranda's voice dropped into a chilling whisper. I taught her a lesson. The courtroom gasped. Her attorney sank into his chair, defeated. The prosecutor rose calmly. "No further questions, Your Honor." It took the jury 3 hours to convict her on every count. When the judge announced the sentence, 18 years in state prison, Miranda finally broke, not into tears, into rage. She lurched to her feet, screaming as deputies held her arms. "You stole everything from me, Hannah. You stole my life. You won. You always win." I stared at her without speaking, because nothing I could say would ever match the depth of her madness. As they dragged her from the courtroom, her voice echoed down the hall, unhinged and furious. But her power was gone. Her shadow was gone. And justice, for the first time in weeks, finally felt real. The weeks after the trial felt strangely quiet, as if the world itself had taken a long, trembling breath and was finally beginning to exhale. There was no more chaos waiting around each corner, no more interrogations, no more evidence to uncover. Miranda was gone. Daniel was in mandatory counseling and living with our aunt while awaiting sentencing on his negligence charge. The house, his house, had been emptied, cleaned, and sealed for investigation. And Lily was finally home. Home, but not the same. The first days back were the hardest. She would not sleep alone. She would not let me close a door even halfway. If a cabinet clicked shut too loudly, she shook. If I stepped out of the room even for 5 seconds to get a glass of water, she cried as though I had abandoned her in the dark again. Trauma rewires the brain in ways no adult can fully comprehend, let alone a 6-year-old. Her therapist, Dr. Patel, a calm, soft-spoken woman with a warm voice, explained it gently during our first session. Lily's entire sense of safety has been shattered. She needs predictability now, structure, gentleness. But most of all, she needs you to show her that love isn't something that disappears. I thought I understood what that meant, but living it was another story. Nights were the worst. Every evening, as soon as the house grew quiet, Lily's fear surfaced. She woke up from nightmares screaming, drenched in sweat, her tiny hands clawing at my shirt. Sometimes she cried out words she could not fully articulate. No, no dark room, no door. Mommy, I want Mommy. Those nights I held her in my arms until her breathing steadied, whispering over and over that she was safe, that the door would stay open, that Mommy was not going anywhere. But recovery is not a straight line. Some days she woke up smiling, wanting pancakes and cartoons. Other days she barely spoke at all, clinging to my side like a shadow. I adjusted my life around her needs in ways I had never imagined, quitting my temporary assignment. arranging reduced hours once I returned to the DA's office, building my entire routine around the stability of her healing. Evan flew back from Alaska 2 weeks after the trial and walked into the hospital with tears in his eyes. He had missed everything. Missed the fear, missed the discovery, missed the trial. But he had not missed the aftermath. He moved into the guest room for a month, quietly helping where he could, making breakfast so I could sit with Lily at the table, doing laundry when she refused to let go of my hand, driving us to therapy sessions. He stopped calling Lily my girl and started saying our girl again, but gently, as if testing the word, making sure I would not flinch. I didn't, because he had shown up in ways that mattered. One afternoon, about a month into her recovery, Lily did something that made my throat tighten. We were sitting in her room coloring. Her drawings had shifted from dark scribbles to simple shapes: flowers, hearts, animals, a little girl with long hair who looked a lot like her. She drew a small circle above the girl's head. I tilted my head. "Who is that?" She pressed the crayon harder, outlining the figure. "Mommy." I blinked back tears. "And who is this?" I pointed to the second figure she was drawing beside it. She paused for a long moment, then added short hair and a smile. "Daddy." She drew both figures holding the little girl's hands. Stability, safety, reassurance, love. A week later, she did something even more remarkable. She fell asleep in her own bed. She made me promise to sit in the hallway where she could see me. I sat there for 2 hours watching her small chest rise and fall until she drifted into deep sleep without waking. The next morning, she ran to me, her hair messy and her face bright. "I slept in my room, Mommy." She said it like she had climbed Everest. I pulled her into my arms. "I am so proud of you, baby." Spring arrived slowly. The weather softened, the air warmed. Lily started laughing again, real laughter, the kind that squeezed her eyes into little crescents and made her nose scrunch. She returned to school in short increments, 1 hour the first week, then 2, then half days. Her teacher was gentle, her classmates welcoming, but Lily clung to my leg every morning before finally releasing me with a trembling breath. Each afternoon she came home with a new drawing or story. One day, she ran out of the school with her backpack bouncing. "Mommy, Mommy, I made a friend today." The pride in her voice made my eyes sting. Small victories. Huge victories. Healing is like that, never loud, never instant, but steady. Real. Even Daniel, after months of silence, began attending therapy regularly. He wrote Lily a long letter, apologizing, taking responsibility, not begging for forgiveness, but acknowledging the weight of his failure. He didn't ask me to read it to her. He asked the therapist what was best. She said Lily wasn't ready. He accepted that without question. The day the envelope arrived, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at his handwriting. Then I put it in a drawer. For one day in the future, far away maybe, but not now, not soon. Near the end of spring, something shifted in me too. I had an offer waiting at the prosecutor's office. Return full-time. Focus on child protection. Train new attorneys in trauma-informed prosecution. Fight for kids like Lily who had no voice until someone gave them one. I said yes, not because I wanted revenge, but because surviving something like this changes your compass, points you toward the work that matters. Lily and I spent our evenings building a new routine: gentle dinners, warm baths, bedtime stories where the heroes always won and no doors ever closed. One night, as I tucked her into bed, she reached up and touched my cheek. "Mommy." "Yes, sweetheart. I like our life." My throat tightened. I stroked her hair. "I like our life too. Do you feel safe?" She nodded. "Because you choose me every day." I froze. The words hit me like a soft blow, painful and beautiful all at once. "I choose you too, Lily. Every day. Forever." I kissed her forehead and held her small hand until her breathing steadied. Healing is slow, messy, imperfect, but it was happening. It was real. And for the first time in months, I felt something that had been missing: hope. Summer arrived with a gentleness I had almost forgotten existed, the kind that warmed the mornings without suffocating them and made everything smell faintly of cut grass and fresh soil. Lily had been back in school for 2 months, slowly reclaiming the parts of childhood that had been stolen from her, and each week she seemed to glow a little brighter. Her cheeks filled out again. Her laughter returned like a song I once loved and thought I might never hear again. Her therapist said she was progressing faster than expected, which was both a relief and a reminder of how far she had come. One early Saturday morning, as sunlight filtered through the kitchen blinds, I found her sitting at the table, drawing her favorite picture again, a small girl holding hands with two adults. I smiled. "Who is that?" She looked up with pride. "That is me, and that is Mommy, and that is Daddy." She colored the adults in carefully. Mommy in a blue dress, Daddy in a green shirt. She added a sun overhead, drawing its rays long and bright. When she finished, she held the page up for me to see. "It is us being happy." My chest tightened, but in the warmest way. "We are happy, sweetheart. I am really proud of you." That same week, Evan and I sat down together, just the two of us, for the first time in months. Divorce had left wounds between us, but trauma had a way of stripping everything unnecessary until only the truth remained. He spoke carefully, as if afraid one wrong word might shatter everything. "I want to be here, really here. Not halfway in, not visiting every other month. I want to be a real father again." "You have been a real father," I said. "You came back. You showed up." He exhaled slowly. "I want to share custody. 50-50. No lawyers, no arguing, just what is best for her." The old version of me might have bristled at that suggestion, but this new version, this woman who had watched her daughter fight nightmares, fear, and silence, realized something important. Lily didn't need a perfect home. She needed a loving one, and she deserved both of her parents as long as they were safe and healthy. I nodded. "Yes, we can do that." Evan's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you. For trusting me. For trusting us." Later that evening, Lily skipped between us during a walk at the park, holding one of our hands in each of hers. The sun set behind the trees, turning everything gold. For a moment, it looked like a picture Lily herself would draw, all soft edges and gentle light. At home that night, after I put her to bed, I found myself standing in the kitchen, staring at the framed photograph on the fridge of Lily as a toddler sitting on my lap. She had chocolate smeared on her cheeks, and I had been laughing, her tiny hands gripping my face with such certainty that I would always be there. And now, I was. Every morning I woke up, I made the same vow. Today, I choose you. And I meant it every single time. I returned to the DA's office 2 weeks later. The building smelled the same, like coffee grounds paper and a hint of industrial cleaner. Colleagues hugged me. Some cried. Others just squeezed my shoulder with a knowing look. I felt different stepping into my old office, stronger, sharper, more grounded. My supervisor handed me a folder. Thin, unassuming, a new case. A 5-year-old girl, possible neglect, possible physical harm. My pulse tightened, not out of panic, but purpose. I sat down, opened the folder, and let my eyes move across the details. Photographs. Notes from a social worker. A report from a teacher who noticed bruises on the girl's arm. My heart clenched, but not with fear this time. With clarity. With mission. I whispered under my breath a small promise. "I will protect you." The same way I protected Lily. Later that night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she curled against her pillow and looked at me with sleepy eyes. "Mommy." "Yes, sweetheart. Does real family love you forever?" I sat on the edge of the mattress and brushed the hair from her forehead. "Real family chooses you every day, even when it is hard, even when life goes wrong, even when the world feels scary. Real family stays." She blinked softly. "Like you, like me, and like Daddy." She nodded, satisfied, then added in a whisper, "And like me, choosing you. Every day." My throat tightened. "Yes, baby. Every day. Forever." She reached up, wrapped her arms around my neck, and kissed my cheek. "I love you, Mommy." I held her tightly, breathing in the warm scent of her hair. "I love you too. more than anything. When she finally fell asleep, her tiny hand resting in mine, I stayed beside her for a long time, watching her chest rise and fall in its steady rhythm. A rhythm of safety, of healing, of life beginning again. Outside the window, the world moved on. Cars passed. Leaves rustled. A dog barked in the distance. Everything felt normal, and normal was a gift. A year ago, my world had been filled with sirens, screams, and scars that refused to fade. Today, it was filled with laughter drawings taped to the fridge, shared breakfasts, bedtime stories, and a little girl who believed in love again. We survived, we rebuilt, we learned, and we chose each other. Not because of blood, but because of love. Because real family is not defined by DNA, it is defined by the choices we make. Every day. The next morning, I packed Lily's lunch, fixed her hair into 2 messy braids she insisted on, and drove her to school. She ran toward the playground without fear, shouting, "Mommy, look!" I watched her climb the slide, laughing with the kind of joy that made my eyes sting. She was whole again, or at least she was becoming whole, and I was too. I know this story has been a long and emotional journey, and if you are still here with me, I want to say thank you. Sharing what happened to Lily and me is never easy, even now, even after a year of healing, even after justice was served. But I chose to tell it because I know there are so many people out there who carry silent scars, who grew up in homes where love was conditional, where doors closed too loudly, where someone else's anger decided the rhythm of the day. Some of you watching might recognize pieces of yourselves in Daniel's fear, or in my guilt, or even in the twisted bitterness that consumed Miranda. Maybe you have been the child hiding in the dark. Maybe you were the adult trying to hold everything together with shaking hands. Or maybe you are someone who has spent years trying to understand why the people meant to love you the most were the ones who hurt you the deepest. If you saw any part of your story in mine, please know this: you are not alone. And what happened to you does not define the rest of your life. Healing is not about forgetting. It is about reclaiming, rebuilding, choosing yourself again and again until the choice feels natural instead of frightening. I want you to remember something Lily's therapist told me during one of the hardest weeks of her recovery. She said that trauma steals your sense of safety, but healing gives you the power to build it again. Nobody can take that from you. Not anymore. If my story made you feel anything, even for a moment, I hope it reminded you that strength does not always look loud or fearless. Sometimes, strength is simply refusing to stay silent. Sometimes it is walking back into your own life after someone tried to shatter it. Sometimes it is holding a child's hand until the nightmares fade. And sometimes it is choosing every day to believe that better is possible. If you have ever lived through something like this, or if you have ever protected someone who could not protect themselves, I invite you to share your thoughts. You never know who might need to read your words today. Your comment might be the thing that makes someone feel seen for the first time in years. And if you want to continue hearing stories like this, stories about resilience, about justice, about healing after darkness, I hope you will stay with me. Your presence here matters more than you know. It tells the algorithm that people want stories with depth, stories that honor survivors instead of silencing them. But more importantly, it tells me that what happened to my daughter and me was not endured in vain. Before we leave this chapter behind, I want to say one more thing. Family is not who shares your blood. Family is who shows up. Who chooses you, who protects you when the world feels too heavy. Lily learned that. And so did I. If nobody has told you this in a long time, let me be the one to say it. You deserve peace. You deserve safety. You deserve love that does not hurt. Thank you for listening to our story. And wherever you are tonight, I hope you choose yourself. Every day. Forever.